Hey, here we are, Chiropractic Lifestyle Revolution podcast. And today I am thrilled because you just should have heard the last 15 minutes that was unrecorded. We'll try to reproduce that with one of the most purpose-driven people that doesn't need a DC. You probably got like 18 honorary DCs already and a master's and whatever else chiropractic offers. Bharon Hoag, I've known you years, man. You're always purpose-driven. Your purpose is elevating, and now you've taken it to a whole new level where you're standing for the rights of people, the rights of chiropractors, or God's sovereign rights. And we're talking about your spiritual foundation, how your faith keeps taking you to higher levels, and definitely gets you when you feel like you're in the frying pan, man, how you don't stay there and can get grounded again. So I'm thrilled to what we're going to go through and what you're going to share.
It's always a pleasure, Fred. Thank you so much for your time. And the feeling is extremely mutual. There's a few times in your life where you meet someone where immediately your energies sync up. Yeah. And that's been you and I. I mean, just Absolutely. Our embrace. I feel like sometimes when we hug, we're going to spontaneously combust, and I love it. Yeah, so it's the energy is definitely there. And I love, we've been emailing, scheduling this, and we're both like, oh, I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. Cool. And yeah, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to speak to you and your tribe and everyone that happens to take the time to listen.
Well, and it was funny because what you guys aren't seeing is we just start talking, and then all of a sudden it's like, dude, that was awesome. We need to record this. And then we talk some more. It's like, fine, let's just stop, start recording, right? So, I mean, a lot of people know you, man. You've had presence in the profession for so long. Your name is known, and what you do is known everywhere. But also, I think it's interesting to know the purpose behind the mission, and because chiropractic, a lot came out of your faith. And so we'd love to hear the story of maybe how you developed your faith, story how you found chiropractic, and the evolution to where your vision is now.
Yeah. So, I'm going to say typical story of a very self-absorbed human that, thought that all the talents and gifts that I had were for me to acquire for me. Went through the first 19 years of my life, doing just that, doing whatever
I was going to say. So you must have been a teenager.
Yeah, exactly.
In early 20s. Everything's about me.
And so I my parents went to church, but we were your typical Sunday Christians. My parents were very much kind of, we know you guys are going to do dumb stuff, just do it at home. So if you're going to drink, do it here, give us your keys, different things like that. So I grew up, my brother was 7 years older than I was. So he was a horrible influence on me. I loved it as a kid, having a brother that took such an interest in me, but I got into stuff way earlier than I should have. But long story short, I got good at football, started playing, thought that was going to be my future, blew my knee out, lost my ability to play football, and got very, very angry. And I really just turned into a jerk, started fighting and going to parties and being just a jerk really everywhere. There were some things going on at home. I was the last one at home. So I was shouldering the pressure of my parents' relationship, my loss of identity because it was football. Graduated high school. Don't know what I'm going to do. Barely graduated high school, mind you. And I just had this radical, this encounter with God, nothing planned. My mom was at church. I went to tell her, I was going to a party actually. And I just went into the church, and next thing you know, I'm sitting in a pew and I'm white knuckling the pew. And then I'm at the altar and I'm having a very violent conversation with God in front of all of these people. And, I remember getting up from that and immediately feeling weird.
I'm just curious. You say a violent conversation, because we've all been to altar calls. Like, are you up there in front of the congregation?
Oh, I'm cussing.
Yelling?
Oh, yeah. Because here's where I was at with God. I didn't care if he was real or not. That's like, if you're real, good for that. If you're not, I don't care. I didn't like the church. The church was full of hypocrites from my perspective. All of these people that were claiming to be righteous, but then I was friends with their kids and they were having affairs and they were abusive and they were, I was messing around with half of my youth group. And so I just felt like church was good for people, but don't act like you're the barometer for ethics in the world, because you guys are just as guilty, if not more guilty, than the people you're pointing your fingers at. So I hated that feeling of it. So I didn't know if God was real or not, but I was so empty. And like, I literally felt like my parents' marriage was on my shoulders. I've got a big personality. You've seen me, doing different things. And so I've been that way my whole life. So I always felt like it was my responsibility to keep everybody going, to entertain, to come up with the next big idea. And my friend circle was like, hey, Bharon, what are we doing tonight? And I'm like, I'm tired of making decisions for everyone. Like, I don't know who I am, what I'm supposed to do. I'm putting this front on. And so I had all this pressure. And then I had this encounter with God. And I mean, when I'm saying violent, I mean, I was like, I don't know if you're fucking real. I don't care if you're real. If you're real, I'm yours, but you're going to have to prove it to me, because I don't know what to believe anymore. I just know I can't live like this. I wasn't suicidal. I just was frustrated and lost and didn't know where I was supposed to. I knew I had talents, but I didn't know what to do with them. And literally, I got up from that altar. Of course, everyone's hugging me. Oh, that was amazing. Doing the church thing. And I'm like, yeah. You guys don't care. Get away from me. And I left the church. And the next day, for the sake of time, a couple of things happened where God proved himself to me immediately. People that had no way of knowing what I had done were reaching out to me saying, hey, God just put you on my heart. I want to let you know I'm here. I'm praying for you. And I'm like, there's no flipping way that. And so I'm like, all right, I put you to a test and you proved yourself. But every day, what I started realizing in this like new transformation that was happening in my heart and my mind and my soul was that it wasn't about me anymore. I didn't have to be the center of everything. Even though I didn't think I was putting myself there, I did. Although I felt others wanted me to be the life of the party, I didn't know how to be anything but the life of the party. I didn't know how to not be in the middle of everyone's relationships. I didn't know how. It was always about me. And as I'm having this, time with God, and my prayers, I mean, you want to talk about David's prayers just being raw. My initial prayers are like, dude, what the hell? Like, why, I'm trying to make this going. Why is this happening? What, I'm just having these verbal conversations in my car with nobody.
And authentic conversation.
Oh, yeah.
It's prayer, right?
Yeah. That's why prayer is so important to me now, because it wasn't, prayer to me isn't, dear God, thank you so much for the food on my plate. It's like, hey, what the hell? Like, I'm lost here. Like, I'm trying, I'm reading, I'm doing this. Lord, bring people into my life. I need surrounded by healthy, normal, supportive people. I need you to, push this temptation away. I have just raw conversations, with God in my prayer time. So the big shift for me, what I learned in this process, because again, I didn't like the church. And so everyone kept saying that Christ was God in man, in the form of man, right? You had the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, but Christ was the manifestation of God in man. And so I'm like, screw the church. I'm going to study Christ. Like, I'm going to look, that's my example, not the church, not telling me I can't drink, I can't dance, I can't go to rated R movies. All these do's and don'ts, these checklists that every church that I started going to had, it didn't make sense to me. Like, don't get so blackout drunk that you're making bad decisions. But if I enjoy a beer, like, I don't know why. For me, I don't go too far. I'm not an alcoholic. It doesn't interfere with my relationship with God. Why are you judging me if I want to go do that? Jesus hung out in those places back in that day. He was with the tax collectors. He was with, the prostitutes. He was, so I'm like, as long as I was talking about my relationship with God more than I was anything at these places, but yet I was still being judged. And so I'm going through this process of trying to figure out, okay, the church says I'm supposed to live like this. My research and my own studying of scriptures telling me this. And the bottom line came to one thing, that I was given very specific talents and gifts. I'm a talker. I love talking, taking complex ideas and simplifying them, making them street level. That's a skill set of mine. I don't get afraid of much. I don't mind failure. Those were kind of my spiritual gifts, if you will. And I started realizing that those weren't given to me for me to further myself. They were given to me so that I could find a way to empower those around me. And if I did everything I could to empower and strengthen the people around me, then I inherently got sucked into that success and that nature. And so I started realizing, instead of doing things for me, I was doing them for others. And then I was like in the wake of that momentum, and I was achieving far more than I ever did on my own. And so very quickly, and that's where I met chiropractic. And I didn't know chiropractic existed. I was 19 years old or 20 years old when I got into chiropractic. And I found this thing that had this phrase that I didn't understand: the power that makes the body heals the body. And they kept saying it: power makes the body, or above, down, inside out, right? All these little ADIO, all these little things, these phrases that I had never heard before. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, is this like a inherently Christian, God-centered profession? And the more I would go to seminars, and I went to some early DE stuff, and I'm like, dude, I feel like I'm kind of at church. Like, what's going on here? And then I started connecting and learning more about the body and understanding how the innate works internally, and self-healing, self-regulating. And I'm like, this just fits with me. This is an amazing way for me to manifest my skill set, still be authentic in my relationship with God, move it into a realm where we can reach more people. And it just became my mission. I'll never forget. It was in July of 95. I think it was July of 95 when I had my big awakening in chiropractic, where the big idea kind of hit. And I knew at that moment, I didn't have to have a DC after my name in order to change the world through chiropractic. And I knew that I never want to be in a situation that I couldn't explain why chiropractic worked. Because I got into a situation with a guy that, he was thanking me for giving him his life back. I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. But I got so convicted that he was so changed by something I didn't believe in, that I made a commitment right then that I will own this thing, chiropractic. I want to know why the adjustment works. I want to know why, when we recommend something, that's what's best for the patient. We were singer clients at the time, so I was learning primary script and Scientology and all this stuff, and it wasn't fitting with me. Like, I couldn't, the authenticity wasn't there. So that's really where I kind of made a name for myself in the profession, as I was the non-chiro going to all these seminars. I went to technique classes. I went to neurology classes. I was like doing all this stuff, raising my hand, asking questions, and like, oh, where'd you go to school? I'm like, I don't even have a bachelor's degree, but I want to know this. And the more I did it, the more people were like, what the crap? We don't see this very often. And it just led me to really what I'm doing today, which, my personal mission within chiropractic is to make chiropractic the number one healthcare choice in the world. I believe that, there was a old book that was written back in the 50s called Man's Greatest Gift to Man. And I believe that is chiropractic. I believe if it's accepted and utilized appropriately within the healthcare systems around the world, we can radically change the way that man expresses themselves in this world. You know that, you experience it, you're on the same page with me. And so that's my mission, is to make chiropractic the number one healthcare choice.
That's awesome. Because obviously I coach chiropractors, right?
Yeah.
I tell them all the time, man. Like, when I heard the principle, me and my buddy got out of school, and it's like, no, man, this is a message for humanity. That's what we did to build a practice. We actually failed the board the first time, and they were practicing without license, seeing 250 a week, and we didn't have a license. Oops, I failed the California board. And we're busier than most chiropractors, right? Because we aren't part of the principle. But let me apply that to what you said. We never saw it as building a practice. We saw it as changing humanity. Yeah. But we're starting in Costa Mesa at this clinic.
That's right.
And then we create leaders, and now one of the mantras in Elite is we don't create patients, we create purpose-driven leaders. We don't 100%. Create a practice, we create a culture and a movement.
100%.
Yeah, cultures are organizations where they have all the same belief systems, they act the same way, they talk the same way. That's lifestyle of chiropractic.
Yep.
And then you give them purpose, and now you go to a movement.
Yeah, I love it. I just had this conversation with my staff. I have a clinic in Columbus, Ohio, and my daughter just graduated chiropractic school, so she's in there now, which is a whole nother amazing God-breathed thing. But I just had a conversation with him the other day. I'm like, listen, we have to stop. We're trying to manifest outcomes, and we're not responsible for outcomes. We're responsible for effort. We're responsible for giving our best, for learning and adapting to the environments we're in to make sure that we're authentically communicating the truth of chiropractic. The message in and of itself is going to create the outcome that's supposed to be there. There are going to be patients that come to our office one time. And as long as we can check the box that we gave them everything we had, then that was the journey they were supposed to be on. And it was the journey we were supposed to be on. I don't care about the statistics from a standpoint of every single person having to follow this ABC plan. What I care about is making sure that our heart is in the right mindset, that I don't care if we think they have $1 or $1 million. We're giving them everything we have. We're planting the seeds that need to be planted. And then we're going to provide an opportunity for God to water it. And if he waters it in our watering hole, awesome. But he may water it in someone else's watering hole. And that is just as powerful and just as amazing. The only barometer I care about is, are we giving everything we have in that moment to that person without limitation? That is the most important thing. And that's where that culture comes from. Because now when my team knows that I'm not going to beat them over the head if someone says yes or no, I'm going to beat them over the head if you didn't give them the information they needed to make the decision. Their yes or no isn't on you. It's on them. And we don't know all of those factors. But what I do know is they're here, and they're here for a reason. And if we don't take full advantage of that opportunity to have them right now and give them everything we got, then that's on us. And that's why clinics that do this, and we're not the only one that does this, that's why patients are like, I used to go to chiropractors for years, but I had no idea. And I'm like, yeah, because people didn't give you the truth because they were too concerned with all the other variables and you coming to some kind of an agreement. So 100%, Fred, it's that culture, it's that authenticity of knowing why we're here. And if chiropractic could, if we could get to the point where we understand again that it's not about us, and I know survival, we all have bills. There's a lot of pressure to take care of payroll for your staff. I get it. I mean, you have that pressure. I have that pressure. That's a realistic thing we have. And so it's hard for us to remove ourselves from this. But if our profession would just get back to the story, like I teach when I used to do coding classes, I had a timeline, and I talk about from 1895 to 1975, our profession had the most growth ever, right? So that 80 years was insane. And that 80 years was growth purely for one reason, because all we did was tell the story of chiropractic. Absolutely. That's all we did. We said we're separate and distinct. We talked about the power of the body, and all we did was tell the story of chiropractic. And we achieved everything from every state creating licensure for chiropractic, to every insurance covering us, to Medicare covering us. Everything that we thought was never possible in 80 years, which isn't a very long period of time when you look at the big scheme of things, we went from a profession that never existed to being one of 3 physicians that can differentially diagnose in the U.S. health system. That's a huge goal. The minute we got that, we stopped telling the story, and it's been a descend ever since, because now it's all about getting reimbursed, and it's about saying whatever we have to say to get paid. And that's where I wish we could just get back to that, what the forefathers had. They were willing to go to jail. They were willing to be persecuted, but not give up their message. And today, we have people that are willing to change their entire message to get $20 for electrical stim. And so that's the passion I want to get everybody back to, is the power of the story.
Well, that's why you're on here. One day, that's why we have Chiropractic Lifestyle Revolution, right? One day I was like, man, what can we do to bring the principle back to chiropractors? And then Chiropractic Lifestyle Revolution, we'll have another event coming up. We're doing these podcasts, getting you out there to bring the principle back, to bring it back. Like, that is the truth, universal intelligence and innate intelligence. What's the other vocabulary? Universal intelligence, God, innate intelligence. We're created in likeness and image. The kingdom is inside you, right? And what's it say? Look inside, seek the kingdom inside, and all things will be added. And that's where we went through COVID. There were so many people that backed down because they were afraid to get in trouble. And yet the clinics that took a stand
exploded.
They exploded. It's like the churches that shut down and all their congregation going to the churches that stayed open.
Right.
It's like, those are the chiropractors that would go to jail. And when you talk to them, did they have cops show up at their office? Yes. They have public health officials show up at their office? Yes. Did they get threatened? Yes. Did anything happen? No. Were they fined? Yes. Did they pay it? No. Are they in trouble now? No.
Right. And that's where we took off, right? The Chiropractic Defense Council really took off in the middle of that. We were the ones fighting with those in Australia and New Zealand, where it was really nasty, where they were showing up, wanting to see vax status and threatening to chain their doors closed. And, I tell everyone, I'll never judge anyone that makes the decision for themselves. There are some that just couldn't handle the pressure. They took a vacation for 2 weeks. I wouldn't have done it, but I'm not judging you for your path and your journey. But the story in Australia, There are about 7,000 licensed chiropractors in Australia. We had about 1,000 of them that stood with us tall, and we had attorneys that were ready to go the minute that anyone went after you. We defended. We kept 1,000 chiropractors practicing in the thick of all of that junk, even during shutdowns and all of that stuff. Kept them practicing. Not a single one of them had to pay a fine. Not a single one of them, were shut down. Not a single one of them had to do vaccination, because we stood the ground. We used the loopholes. We fought the fight. And it was such an honor for me to be that was like my personal time back in the 60s and 70s when we were going through that time of getting licensure in each state. It was incredible to watch. The same thing in New Zealand, the same thing in Rhode Island. Rhode Island was really nasty here in the US because they got rid of religious exemption as an ability to do that. And so they were threatening and going after it. So my Rhode Island chiropractors, God bless you, man. You guys, in the US, that was the most dangerous place to practice as a chiropractor because they were really getting malicious. But again, we fought it, we sued the state, and we got it removed. And no one got harmed in any capacity other than just some emotional scarring. But you're right, man. If we stand on principle biblically, whatever we suffer, right? Paul and Silas, they got thrown in jail. Paul spent most of the Gospels were written in jail, right? I mean, I'm not saying that we're not going to be persecuted, and Scripture is actually very clear that you're going to be. It's actually a measurement of your devoutness and your obedience, right? But whatever the outcome is, it's exactly perfect. And that's and God will reward you in that. And if we could just do that again in our profession, if we could just be reckless abandonment for the truth of knowing what we know, standing for what we stand. And that's why I'm honored with the Defense Council. We are led by that principle, the principle that the truth is the truth, and we will fight and defend it at all costs. And it's just amazing.
And again, whatever you did through COVID is what you did, what you felt like you had to do. People want to protect their families, blah, blah, blah. So we're not judging it either way. But what it's a testimony to is the general public knows better. I mean, now a lot of them may not take 100%. That way, but there are people that are willing to stand, and God knows what we're going to go through. But this is an opportunity to stand for truth, and you will be flooded with people. 100%. I mean, I had clinics that they couldn't handle the new patients. Yeah. Like, oh my God, we're trying to slow down the new patients. We can't. People calling because they were the ones that were open.
And that's what COVID did. Like, if you look at this in hindsight, right, aside from the devastation, the shutdowns that had emotional and societal implications that we don't know yet. I mean, it was a horrible period of time.
Yeah.
But just like the Great Depression was a horrible period of time, but it led to some phenomenal, like every generation has. The Vietnam War was a horrible, horrible thing, but it led to amazing things that happened in our culture, and COVID did the same thing. But if you look at the timeline of this, first we had opioids. Opioids was the first real time that it was exposed, the pharmaceutical control and the ignorance of the allopathic world in their recommendations, right? So that hit really hard, and it affected every economic level. So it was no longer a poverty, homeless person thing. This was happening to the elite of the elite because their kids, blew their knee out, all of a sudden got hooked on opioids, and they got into heroin and so on and so forth. So we had that hit. Then you had COVID, right? So we have the exposure of the allopathic world, like not being honest, and economics really driving healthcare. And then you had COVID, where it did two things. One, it expounded on that control and economic control of healthcare by the way that they were literally raffling off vaccines and giving higher education for free and all this other kind of crap to get vaccinated. But it changed the consciousness of our general public in understanding what health was. Prior to COVID, health was the absence of symptoms to the general public. I feel good. We'd meet people. Oh, you're in chiropractic? Oh, luckily I've never needed one, right? My back's pretty good. I don't have headaches, right? So health is the absence of symptoms. What COVID did is it changed consciously. The healthy people didn't get sick. The only people that this was deadly for were those that were immunocompromised, overweight, already had issues. The sick people, which were your elderly, and those that had all these other health issues, they were the ones that prayed. That's why children didn't have issues. That's why healthy people didn't have issues. That's why our chiropractic patients didn't have issues. So that got revealed to the general world that, wait a minute, health is really about staying healthy, not getting from sick to unsick. And that's why our clinics exploded, because as that message got out that if you're healthy, you really don't have to worry about this deadly disease that was 0.01% mortality rate. But people shifted, and that's why all of a sudden they were like, dude, well, then we want to go to acupuncture. We want to go to chiropractic. We want to start taking nutrition, because the mindset changed that if I stay healthy, then maybe all these other deadly things aren't as deadly to me.
Well, and that goes back to a spiritual principle. I think what people are awakening to is you raise consciousness. A biblical quote is, he that is in me is greater than he that is in the world. And that is the chiropractic principle. So I before we started this, I was talking to a guy today, and I teach a lot of spiritual principles, because chiropractic principle is a spiritual thing. How 100%. You fulfill your purpose is a spiritual commitment. How you deal with running a business, facing the world, running a family, doing all that, being an entrepreneur. Spirituality is, I don't know how people do it without spirituality.
Yeah, I don't know how they do either, man.
And knows how they cave to the world, right? And so that's what I tell people is like, well, I can't find staff. Well, you got the universal intelligence, you got God moving through you. You don't have to do it. That's what I tell them, why don't you ask God to send you the right person? So I got a real trippy story. This is not in our systems of hiring teams.
Okay. Thank you for the preface.
Preface. We don't have this in our script book. But I was sitting there doing P90X, and I had, I needed a great ops manager. I had tons of problems when I had blah, blah, blah. And so I yelled like you in church, and I went, God, this is yours. You have to find me someone. And I did it, like Jesus, 3 steps to create a miracle, right? Faith, believe. And then was it believe and then give thanks? Yeah. Right. That's when Martha's sister, well, he kind of smells. Where's your faith, woman? Right. Don't you believe, right? And then he goes, God, I know you're here. I know you see people watching, and then what's he do? Command, Lazarus rise, right? Like 3 steps create a miracle. Well, here, I didn't ask. I'm like, you
boldly approach the throne. Absolutely.
Exactly. And this woman's face appeared in front of me in my den. I'm like, oh my God, that's the girl at the bank. It was the manager at the bank that I went to.
Yeah.
And so I drove there later that day after all my coaching calls. And I said, I'm a chiropractor. Here's what I do. Lee Cook, la, 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 la. And she goes, me and my mom have been praying that I would get a job with a chiropractor. And she was being transferred 2 days later.
Wow.
Out of the area.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I hired her, I'm like, I can never fire you because God told me to hire you. So I hope you're right. That was her interview. Look, I can't fire you. So I hope you're good because God told me to hire you. Right.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. I can't find staff, or what am I going to do? Or I can't make payroll. Go love your patients.
Yeah.
Right. Get connected
100%.
Spiritually. Come into presence. Feel God's presence inside of you. And then love his children.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a complicated game, man. We complicate it with all the widgets and gadgets and gizmos and ways to maybe do it easier. The easiest way to do it is just authenticity. I mean, there are some variables, right? There are some people that don't have the great outgoing personalities, but hire one. Like my first doctor that I worked with, dude, I loved him. He was a great adjuster, but he would confuse himself when he talked. Like our rule was you talk with your hands, I'll talk with my mouth. And literally his rule was, hey, ask Bharon when you're done. Like I'm like, please, I love you. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that is not your spiritual gift. You just work with them with your hands. I will work with them with my mouth. And we were a phenomenal team, grew from 60 to 300 visits in 2 months. Just because we worked at, so if you're that person that you're like, well, I don't have the gift of gab, I'm not a super social person, then ask God to bring that other teammate into your life to be that yin and yang with you. Because, I don't believe 100% that someone has to change who they are in order to be authentic. I want you to be honest about yourself in the areas that you're strong and the areas that you're weak. If you can work on them because you're being lazy, then work on them. But if that's just not, if you're an inherent introvert, then be an introvert, but hire an extrovert to help you tell the story. Like there's no excuse to find this.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I agree 100%, but I would also say get on purpose.
Agreed.
I'm scared to death to talk in public. Too bad.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I had a 5-minute talk in college in a college speech class. And I thought I bitched for a week. That is so unfair. 5 minutes is ridiculous. The first workshop I gave was 3 people and I had diarrhea all day. The second week I didn't have diarrhea. I thought it was a major win.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is I was highly shy. I was the last guy to speak up.
Wow, that's crazy.
20s, dude, I needed to drink a shitload of tequila to be able to talk to people, which I did on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah, right.
So when you look at, people think, my wife will tell you, oh, I'm very introverted in my personal life, but now I love people so much, I finally know who I am, that we say hi to everybody, right?
Yeah, you're not wrong, right? God does not call the equipped; He equips the called, and so you're 100% right in that as well. Yeah,
get to your purpose, man, and get out of your comfort zone, and then work on skill. I mean, I don't know about you, I'm pretty sure, but I trained with Roberto Monaco. You trained with speaking coaches.
Yeah.
Why? Because we have to. It's our purpose. So get the freaking skill and get out of your own way. Because how did you start this? It's not about you.
That's right.
Yeah, do what you're called to do. And you know what you're called because that's what you're scared of. If you're scared of it,
that's great. Yeah.
That's your calling.
Yeah.
That's your calling.
If it's that nagging thing in your life that just doesn't go away, that you don't want to acknowledge or think about, and 100%. Yeah, that's great. I love it. If you're scared of it, then that's fantastic.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Love it, man.
Phenomenal. Well, chiropractic is spiritual principle, man. To be a chiropractor and not be spiritually grounded, I believe, is incongruency. Yeah. It doesn't mean we didn't say religion. We didn't say religion.
Right.
But we did say is the principle. We are innate intelligence. How can you not? And that's the thing is like some people think, well, innate intelligence is smaller. No, it's not. Innate means inborn.
Yeah.
That means universal intelligence moves through you.
Yeah.
And so why don't you bring that when you talk to a patient? Do they feel all of divine eternity coming through you when you look in their eyes? Do they feel that from your heart? Do they hear that in your words? Because then they're going to go, holy shit, I'm in. Can I bring my kids? You're not going to have to ask them for referrals.
No, it happens organically, 100%. Yeah, my daughter's, it's funny because I'm watching my daughter go through these realizations, right? She's 3 months into being licensed, and she's really specializing in pediatrics, pregnancies, and she had this mindset. I don't want to treat men. She's tiny. She's 100 pounds soaking wet. She treats horses, but she was nervous of men. So figure that out. But I told her, I said, listen, we got to break this. You're going to start seeing men. Like, I just need you to, like, I know you don't get to cherry pick. We just see who God brings in the door. And she was frustrated with it, but she just came to me the other week. She's like, Dad, I can do it. I'm like, I know you can do it. You could have done it the whole time. You were limiting yourself because of all of these factors that aren't real, rather than you just trusting God's going to give you what you need to do in the moment you need to do it. And so watching her go through this, and now she's getting referrals like crazy because it just flipped in her mind that it's not that she's a brand new chiropractor. She's a chiropractor, period. There's no new or old. You are what you are. And you carry that attitude. And I said, you've been becoming a chiropractor for 25 years. You just happen to have the piece of paper now. So don't limit yourself. You have more principle, more knowledge, more experience. You've been in more circles than 90% of the chiropractors out there because of the family you grew up in. So you should be carrying some confidence with you because you've been prepared since you were 3 years old.
Hey,
it's awesome.
I want you to be my dad. Let's go back and start over. I'm older than you. How that this didn't work.
That's awesome. That's fantastic stuff, man. Yeah, dude, I love sharing with you. I love your energy. I love what you guys do at Elite. And I just thank you for being authentic to yourself and to your call. What you and your wife are doing now with the healed stuff, and the light that you guys are shining. That talk you did at UAC, man, just blessed me so much. And yeah, it's an honor to call you friend, man. I love that we get to serve at this time in history together.
Yeah, I so appreciate that, man. We have a warm heart for you too. You've spoken at our boot camps. We got another chiropractic lifestyle revolution event coming up October 14th. And then my next question is anybody coaching your daughter besides you?
Yeah, so she's actually in with 3 different people because I didn't want her to be just with me for obvious reasons. You know, she kind of grew up with that. So yeah, she's doing e-bowl stuff with PDX because that's kind of her world. She's loving that. Roberto, I got her doing some stuff with Roberto because he's just a stud.
Because he is.
Yeah, and then she's into the animal chiropractic stuff as well. So Jay Kamarick from Colorado, who's a phenomenally faith-filled man and a horse whisperer. So yeah, she's got some great people in her life that are pouring into her as well. So it's awesome.
Yeah, right on. So one quick question, you know, well, may not be a quick answer, but where do you see the world going? What do you see how your purpose affects it? Where do you want it? I know we want chiropractic care to be the #1 choice in healthcare around the world, which reminds me, by the way, I'm launching this book that I don't have in front of me right now. Hang on. It's called, I retitled it, The Best Kept Secret to Heal Your Back Pain, How to Strengthen Your Spine, Restore Your Health, Body, and Life. Now, the only reason I put back pain on it is because it'll come up on searches.
Yeah.
But this is all about the spine and nervous system and health and disease. There's tons of medical studies on here. The launch day is going to be August 18th.
Love it.
So it's coming up. We're going to turn it into a bestseller. I'm putting it on a bunch of press releases. My goal is to get on a bunch of media and talk about the truth about chiropractic around the world.
Love it.
So there was a point to that story, but
well, you were asking me what I thought where things are headed.
Oh yeah, so yeah, to make it #1, yeah. What? Yeah.
So you know, honestly, because I'm now in 9 countries, I'm working, you know, with chiropractic in newer countries where it's not as developed. I'm obviously in the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Indonesia, Scandinavia. And so I get a very unique look now, right? Because we in the US, we have the highest concentration of chiropractors here, but it's very different, obviously, in the United States than it is the rest of the world. I have a much more appreciation for being an American today than I did 4 years ago. Now that I've spent time in these other countries, understand how these other legal systems work, how the economics work in these countries. It's very interesting. Now, I was just very ignorant of it before. I believe if we can do something our profession has never done before, and that's to legitimately organize, the next 5 years, we have an unbelievable opportunity to literally actually direct the path of healthcare as chiropractic.
Absolutely.
Because we have the answers to all the questions that are being asked right now. The problem with our profession, because it's been very self-focused, egocentrical, you know who I'm talking about, the same usual suspects that'll stand on a stage and it's me. They say it's chiropractic, but at the end of the day, it's about them getting famous or rich. We have people that are in love with their technique and they use that as a reason to divide from their colleagues rather than unite. You know, I love CBP. I love Activator. I love Best. They all have a place. They all work, right? In varying different ways. And if we can get past the things that we're using to segregate our own profession, we're not very big. I mean, worldwide, this is a scary statistic. Worldwide, we're about 157,000 chiropractors. Worldwide. There's more DOs than that in Ohio. Right. So, I mean, as a profession, we're very, very, very small, but the punch that we can develop is unbelievably strong when we can organize. So the fact that we've spent most of our 128 years figuring out ways to divide ourselves, like here in the US, another scary statistic between the ICA and the ACA, which are arguably our 2 national associations combined, members combined, are less than 10% of the licensed chiropractors in the US. Yeah. Like that's like when you look at making moves, doing legislation, getting into the military, the type of work that we spend time doing, it's impossible when you have 90% of a profession that isn't connected to anything. And that's why, you know, trust me, I have my opinions of the work that's been done in the past, but I don't fault either organization. They're in a losing battle. They don't have the numbers and resources to do what the world expects them to do, but yet they still fly the flag. So what we've been trying to do with the CDC is say, I'm not asking you to fly a flag when you connect with us. I'm a very vitalistic, purpose-driven Christian man. I'm very open about that. I always have. But you connecting to us doesn't mean that you have to do that. It just means you agree that the rights of practicing chiropractors need to be protected. So if we can just do that, the work that we were able to do through COVID, what we're doing right now with animal chiropractic here in the US, and standardizing that. We have chiropractors that are getting cease and desist letters, fines, and threaten to lose their license for treating animals in certain states, which they have a certification to do it. So they have the same certifications vet do, but it's really these types of issues that cloud our passion from moving forward. So we take on those types of battles. And right now we have about 3,200 people that are connected to us. If I can get to 10,000 chiropractors connected to us, and all we ask for is $33 a month. So it's not a huge financial commitment. And it's really more about connecting us together to disseminate information consistently, organically, and authentically, right? We don't hide anything. Our finances are exposed. The work we do is exposed. Everything we do is transparent. That was rule number one when we created One Chiropractic. So if we could get to 10,000, that gives us enough money. I could literally take on a 5-year battle with pharma and never ask for another penny. I don't need huge numbers. We just have to start organizing. So if we do that, if our goal is achieved, we will have the defense system working in conjunction with other good organizations in our profession. Chiropractic will take the front seat in healthcare and directing the direction of where we go. It's that close. So we're talking 3 to 5 years. But if we keep staying segmented, if we keep saying, no, I don't like him because he doesn't do this or they did that or don't do that, and we find every reason to keep staying in our pockets like we are, then we're going to have a lot of the same. We're never going away. Nothing's ever going to get rid of chiropractic. Our patients love us too much. There's too many of us that are still preaching the truth in our own little clinics. Chiropractic is never going away, but we're never going to change the share of healthcare that we have now. We're still going to be fighting for significance. We're still going to be fighting over the same pie of the GDP because we're still too busy fighting with each other. So I'm starting to see those things break down. When I work with other leaders in the profession, major organizations, people are starting to be honest with ourselves about the reality of what's been happening over the last 20 years. So I will tell you personally, I am more excited about the next 5 years for chiropractic than I ever have been, because there's such opportunity. And I think we're starting to get our shit together as a profession, and we're starting to make better decisions. And we are going to organize, and it's going to be pretty amazing because the opportunities are pretty good. But it all boils down to what we started with. And you can't have a revival. You can't have a revolution. You can't have a coup. You can't have any change in the path of a current existence until you actually believe in the vision, you are authentic in it, and you allow yourself to fully express it. And so if our profession doesn't do those things, it's just going to be more of the same. But I'm choosing to believe that there are people like you, people like me, and there are other warriors out there that are screaming this kind of stuff, that we're going to start having this tide that's going to start wrapping all and bringing everyone together. And then we're just going to start kicking some ass for the glory of God.
Well, I just want to say one thing, and then you can give me your information, how they can donate and get a hold of you. It's funny because you talk about unity, like say unity on a common agreement. And, I see it as, we've been trying to work on unity for chiropractic for a long time, but with the time in the world right now, the public is demanding that we tell the principle. Mm-hmm. And so, you don't have to grow a practice. What you have to do is tell the truth. And the public is demanding that. And what I also see is, while you're fighting the legal things, and while you pay and donate to the CDC and the legal movement that Bharon's creating, the other thing is, how do you create 90% of your life of patients living chiropractic? Because the army that we create is going to be when the general public demands it.
Hands down.
So chiropractic is one thing when the general public demands it. And so that's our standard in Elite, is we create 90% of your patients to live chiropractic with their families. And we see it with the people that go through our system, and we have a little bit different model as to how we do it. But, hey, go to Elite Coaching LLC. So if we can come from the general public side, LLC.com, that is, and we got it on the legal side, and then we get the general public to donate to the CDC because they're purpose driven, then we are unstoppable. Then it comes down to that one line that I said so redundantly every Sunday at Catholic Church: thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And that's chiropractic, and that's right. We're creating heaven on earth.
Love it.
So,
absolutely love it, brother.
Yeah. So how do they get a hold of you, man?
Yeah, very simple. www.defendchiropractic.org. Very simple. If you want to get to me directly, just do the contact us on that. You can contribute there. Again, we're just asking for $33 based on the 33 principles. So it's $33 a month. You can get out of it at any point. You're not, no contract, it's not a member organization. You're joining an army, and we'll keep you updated on a regular basis as we move through our stuff. So, but yeah, would love to have you a part of it, guys. Thanks for watching. And Fred, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. We love all of you. Let's get on purpose. Let's work together. Let's come together. Let's support the CDC, and let's create heaven on earth right now, because that's the truth, chiropractic. All right. Love you guys. Stay tuned.
God bless.
Chiropractic Lifestyle Revolution podcast. Like, subscribe, and please share. And we'll have more juice, more philosophy, and principle fire hose coming your way. Peace.